There are days when you wake up and the thought of being here feels heavy before anything even happens. Nothing is going wrong yet, and still you're already tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, a deeper one. The kind that makes the day ahead feel like something you have to get through instead of something you're part of. You don't always think dramatic thoughts about it. You're not planning anything. You're not trying to scare yourself. It's quieter than that. It's just the feeling that being awake takes effort you don't know where to find. That opening your eyes starts a long stretch of pretending you're okay enough to keep going. You move through the morning on habit. You do what needs doing because it's what you do. You answer when spoken to. You show up where you're expected. From the outside, nothing looks urgent. From the inside, everything feels heavy in a way that's hard to explain. You might tell yourself you're being ungrateful, that other people have it worse, that you should be able to handle this. You've handled so much already. But those thoughts don't lift the weight. They just sit on top of it, making you feel more alone with it. There's a quiet wish underneath all of this, not to disappear in some dramatic way, just not to have to keep being here like this. Not to have to wake up and carry this same feeling through another day. It feels strange to admit that, even to yourself. Like saying it makes you a bad person. Like it means something is deeply wrong with you. So you keep it to yourself. You function. You wait for the feeling to pass, even when it's been around for longer than you want to admit. Right now, you're not looking for answers. You're not looking for a reason to stay or go. You're just here, inside this tiredness, noticing how heavy it feels to keep being awake. You didn't choose to feel this way, and you didn't suddenly arrive here. You stayed. That's the part people don't see. You stayed because there were reasons, because there were people, because there were habits and routines and expectations that quietly kept pulling you back into the day. You tell yourself to just get through this hour, then the next one, then maybe the rest of the day. You make small deals with yourself without really noticing you're doing it. You lower the bar until it feels reachable. You stop asking for relief. You aim for not making things worse. That feels safer. That feels possible. You might catch yourself thinking in smaller and smaller units of time. Morning, afternoon, evening, bed, wake up again. You don't look very far ahead because that makes the weight heavier, so you keep your focus close. You stay with what's right in front of you and try not to ask too much of yourself. At some point, you start wondering when this became normal. When being here stopped feeling natural and started feeling like something you had to justify. You remember times when waking up didn't feel like this, and that memory doesn't comfort you the way you wish it would. It just reminds you that something has shifted. There's a quiet guilt that lives underneath the staying. Guilt for feeling this way at all. Guilt for the people who care about you. Guilt for not having a clear explanation when nothing obvious is wrong. You tell yourself you should be stronger. You tell yourself other people manage this. You tell yourself this is just a phase and it will pass if you don't give it too much attention. So you keep going. You keep showing up in the ways you can. You keep being here, because leaving, in any sense, feels too big to face. Because staying feels like the only option that doesn't immediately break everything open. Even if it hurts in a way you already know how to carry. You don't stay because you want to. You stay because you don't know how to stop. And right now, that's where you are, holding on to the day in front of you, not out of hope, not out of belief, but out of familiarity, out of knowing how to survive this version of being here. Staying like this takes something from you, even when nothing dramatic is happening. It's not a sudden loss. It's slow, subtle, the kind of change you only notice when you pause long enough to feel how tired you've become. Your energy doesn't disappear all at once. It thins out. You start the day with less than you used to have, and by the end of it, there's almost nothing left. Not because the day was especially hard, but because being here already took so much out of you before anything even began. You might notice that your patience is shorter, that small things feel heavier than they should, that conversations ask more of you than you can give. You listen, you respond, you nod along, but inside you feel like you're running on something fragile, something that could give out if you push it too far. There's a cost to pretending you're fine enough, to brushing off how heavy this feels, to telling yourself you'll deal with it later. Over time, you stop trusting your own signals. You don't know anymore whether you're exhausted, sad, overwhelmed, or just weak. Everything blends together into one dull ache that follows you around. You might also notice how quiet you've become with yourself. You don't ask big questions anymore. You don't imagine much past getting through the day. You avoid looking too closely at how you feel, because you're not sure what you'd do with what you find there. Even joy feels distant in a strange way. Not gone, just muted. You can still smile, you can still laugh, but it doesn't quite reach the same place it used to. It passes through you instead of settling. And afterward, the tiredness is still there, waiting. This is the quiet cost of staying when you don't want to wake up anymore. Not a breaking point, not a crisis. Just the slow wearing down that happens when being awake feels like work, and you keep doing it anyway. At some point, something changes. Not in a way you can point to, not in a way that feels hopeful or clear. It's smaller than that, quieter, easy to miss if you're not paying attention. You don't suddenly want to be here. You don't feel better. You're just a little more tired of carrying this the way you've been carrying it. The old ways of pushing through don't work as well anymore. The distractions don't last as long. Telling yourself it's fine doesn't land the way it used to. You might notice a pause where there used to be urgency, a space where you don't immediately rush to correct your thoughts or argue yourself out of how you feel. You let the feeling exist for a moment longer than usual. Not because you've decided to be brave, but because you don't have the energy to keep fighting it the same way. There's a strange honesty that comes with that kind of tiredness. You stop demanding explanations from yourself. You stop insisting that you feel differently before you're allowed to rest. You're not giving up. You're just not forcing yourself forward every second. You may realize that a lot of your energy has been going into convincing yourself to stay, rather than actually wanting to. Seeing that doesn't bring relief. It doesn't give you clarity or direction. But it does soften something. It quiets the constant negotiating you've been doing inside your own head. You're still here. You're still waking up. You're still carrying the same weight, but you're not gripping it quite as tightly. You're allowing yourself to notice how heavy it actually is, without immediately turning that into shame or urgency. Nothing dramatic happens. There's no breakthrough. Just a subtle loosening. A small shift from fighting the truth of how tired you are to letting that truth exist without punishment. That's the change. Not a decision, not hope. Just a quieter, more honest place to stand for a moment. You're still here, and that matters more than you're used to admitting. Not in a dramatic way, not as a victory, just as a quiet fact. You woke up. You stayed awake. You're breathing through this moment without asking it to be anything other than what it is. You're not suddenly okay. The tiredness hasn't disappeared. The questions are still there, waiting in the background. But you're not collapsing under them in the same way. You're standing a little more evenly inside yourself, even if your legs still feel weak. There's less arguing now, less pressure to explain or justify how you feel. You're not trying to convince yourself that everything is fine. You're not trying to scare yourself into caring more. You're just letting this moment exist without adding anything to it. You can feel how tender this place is, how easily it could tip into overwhelm if you push it. So you don't push. You let yourself be exactly as tired as you are, exactly as unsure, exactly as human. That alone creates a bit of space around the pain, even if it doesn't take it away. You're not making promises to yourself. You're not planning how to feel better. You're not reaching for meaning. You're just noticing that you're here and that you can stay with this moment without disappearing inside it. This place isn't loud. It isn't hopeful in the way people talk about hope. It's quieter than that, steadier. It feels like solid ground, even if it's not comfortable ground. And for now, that's enough. This is where things are clear again.